Welcome to Best Life Ever, the podcast with your hosts, time and energy coaches, Kimi and Pua. Here at Best Life Ever, we are on a mission to expand the way people think, work, and live in today's modern world. Today, we have an interview with the coolest couple.
Carmela and Raymund, a New York and New Jersey bred couple, destined to be travel partners from the very beginning, first met in Hawaii. They eventually got engaged at Newark Airport, later married in Mexico, and then honeymooned around the world. In 2007, they abandoned their traditional routines and dove headfirst into a life as location-independent workers. Through this journey, they've learned there are truly no wrong turns, and we are so excited for you to hear their story. Please welcome Carmela and Raymund to Best Life Ever, the podcast.
Well, welcome to the podcast, Carmela and Raymund. How are you guys doing?
We are great.
We're lovely.
Awesome. Well, we'd love to kick things off by just having you share with our audience a little bit more about who you are and what you do.
All right. So my name's Raymund. I am an artist / photo retoucher.
And I'm Carmela. I'm a nonprofit NGO consultant and math tutor. And together we have a blog called No Wrong Turns. And I guess you could also call us like location independent. We kind of live and work from anywhere within reason. As long as there's the Wi-Fi.
Definitely within reason.
So awesome. I mean, if Wi-Fi is the only requirement, you could literally work everywhere in the world, I think, at this point, right?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I remember hearing your story before I even met you. Somebody said, oh my gosh, you have to meet these two. They're amazing. They live yeah. You guys are kind of famous. I don't know if you know. Surprise. But I mean, your story is so inspiring, and you've really created what we think is truly your best life ever. And we'd love to hear more about your lifestyle and kind of what your journey was to start living in this way.
So I think it really all started maybe around back when we got married. We were trying to figure out what we wanted to do for our honeymoon. And we were just like, oh, there are just so many places we want to go. And I don't know when we had the decision point, but we decided to do a honeymoon around the world. And we took a map, and then we each kind of plotted points where we wanted to go. And then we saw where, we had overlap. And then we kind of pretty much just drew a line that went all around the world.
Just connected the dots.
Yeah. And so we did that for that. I quit my job, and Raymund took a leave from his job, and we did about a 3.5-4 month trip around the world. And it was amazing. And, we thought it wasn't gonna like take away the drive to travel, but maybe we would have gotten to the majority of places we wanted to go. But in traveling, I think the thing, at least for us, we realize is that the more you travel, the more you want to travel, because you learn about new places and you see new possibilities. And so we came back from that trip and just really just had a renewed sense of perspective on what we wanted to do with our lives. And then you want to take it from there.
Yeah, I mean, after we came back from our honeymoon, we were trying to figure out a way to set ourselves up for more travel and cheaper travel, and I guess more of a purpose in our lives. So we started rearranging our priorities at home, getting rid of junk we don't need. We started to travel hack, which is another big thing that has been instrumental in allowing something like this to happen. And we've just been trying to focus on ourselves and being honest with our passions and what is it we want to do outside of a 9-to-5 grind, instead of just working to make money and living from check to check, which is something I completely do not ever want to do. It's just one of those things where if we can properly set the puzzle pieces up, can we then make the dream that we've created for ourselves more of a possibility and maybe even a likelihood. So
yeah, and I excuse me, it took a couple of years. We worked, we saved, we kind of built up our skills, and then we took the leap in 2015. And actually, Hawaii was the first place we went to as kind of location independent workers. We came here in December 2015. And actually, the first goal of coming here was to run our first marathon, the Honolulu Marathon. So that kind of was our first thing that drew us into Hawaii. And then we kind of just did these other cool festivals and things happening over the next couple of months. Let's just stay a while. And so we did. We were going to leave end of February, and then we stayed until June. And it was like one of those things where we actually could have done that because we slowly transitioned to this lifestyle where we could, work online and have that flexibility in our schedule.
Yeah.
Wow. So cool. I love that the term location independent workers. That is awesome. And it's such it just like rings of freedom, right? And we love it. Okay. So, you mentioned travel hacking, and if we could just back up a second and have you share a little bit more about what that looks like and what that means to you and how that played a role into creating this lifestyle for yourself.
So travel hacking, I mean, there's, in its simplest form, it's just using credit cards to your advantage. And, everyone has like their own like take on, a philosophy of how to do it best. But for us, it's really just using credit cards, signing up for them with specific ones that have like point bonuses. So, for example, like the Chase Sapphire card, like if you sign up for it at a perfect time, you get 100,000 extra points if you spend X amount in 3 months. And so just kind of seeing where those deals are, signing up for them, and then getting those bonuses so that you could use them towards flights, which is usually the most expensive part of traveling are the flights. Usually from the mainland to here, it's around $800. But for us, our one-way tickets were like less than $6 each because we were using those points that we've accumulated through credit cards. And just a disclaimer, I'm not a financial person or like an expert, but this is something that you have to do when you're like when you don't have debt, like no credit card debt. Like it has to be something that you pursue. Like once you're kind of like financially stable, but then once you are like being able to amass those points and to use them to your advantage is really like magical because we don't have to worry about paying hundreds of dollars here and there every time we want to take another leg of our trip.
That is so cool. Wow.
Did you say $6?
Yeah, $6.
Yeah.
So like when you sign up for these credit cards, there is a minimum that you have to spend, right? But these minimums, you can essentially pay for anything, right? You're not forcing yourselves to buy a new spanking new camera or, buy a car with this credit card or go beyond your financial limits. You're actually just reallocating all the things that you normally spend. I guess you would call it your overhead for the month. What are things that you always spend on every month? So it's gas, groceries,
cable bill,
your phone bill, all these things. So as you switch it from one credit card to the next, these bonuses are being awarded to you without any extra effort on your part. Yeah. And the only thing you have to be conscious of is making sure to cancel the credit cards at the right time and so on and so forth. Now, the biggest rebuttal that we always get is, oh, don't you take a huge hit on your credit score? And I think from all the research we've done together, mostly Carmela, it's a lot of there's a bit of a bounce in your credit score for I think it lasts a couple months. So if you are planning a big purchase like a car or a house, that probably wouldn't be a good time to start travel hacking. And also, like Carmela said, you don't want to be in debt when you're doing this. If you can't pay for your credit cards every month and you already have yourself in the red, I think that is probably the first order of business, is just making sure you're back to zero and you can pay off your credit cards every month. And then once you get that done, the only other prerequisite I would say is to do the proper research for the correct credit card because if you plan it properly, you can actually corral all these points into one alliance, say, for instance, so that if you typically fly United, it might make more sense, like us in our case, to go with Star Alliance. Whereas if you're flying a lot to Asia, maybe you might do Cathay Pacific and their alliance, and that's, I don't know, is that even?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
But I think, it always kind of is amazing to me when we say, we got this ticket for $6 and everyone's like, oh my God, how'd you do that? But really, we didn't spend any extra money. It was just a matter of using our resources, in a different way so that we can get something that's important to us.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow, that's fascinating. You guys should definitely write a book or sell a course on this because it's so fascinating. And I think people don't necessarily know that these opportunities are out there. And if they do, it can be intimidating if you don't know exactly what to do and what card to use and what fees are involved. And as you said, it doesn't take any extraneous spending on your part. It's just taking care of your day to day. So that's really awesome advice. Thank you. That's really cool.
It's really cool too, because when we got back from our around the world, I think the true goal back then was, can we do around the world trip again? But is it possible to not pay for any of these flights? And what we figured out is that 200,000 was the magic number. If you got to 200,000 points, then that would actually pay for a around the world trip ticket.
Wow.
And what does that entail? It means you can travel one way, one direction. So you can't fly east, then west, and east, and zigzag that way. You have to pick a direction. So if you're going to start in Hawaii, then you would have to, either go east or west from there. And you have a year to travel. And you have to predetermine which cities you're going to fly into and out of. But those could change in terms of timings.
Yeah, exactly.
So the ultimate hack, if you could even get there, would be to, let's say, buy 2 round the world trip tickets, one going east, one going west. And then within that year, you could zigzag all you want, just switching between the 2 tickets.
Holy smokes. If anybody listening tries this, please let us know.
Yes. So cool. What I love about this conversation so much is it just shatters a lot of the limiting beliefs or stories that we might have about what's possible, right? It's like a lot of people are thinking, oh, I want to travel, but I can't, right? I don't have that much money. And so this is just such a new way to think about it. And I'd be curious if what are other things that perhaps you've had to learn or have learned as you've adopted this lifestyle of being a location independent worker. Are there other things like travel hacking that you guys have discovered that might shatter some of the stories and limiting beliefs that we have?
Well, Carmela is more of the travel planner, so I'll let her answer that.
Awesome.
Well, I think, just to focus on the working remotely part. I think for me, I was working in an office for over 10 years, and I think when I was in that position, I was progressing in my career. I liked my job, and I thought it was, I was happy with it, but there was always that itch to travel, and so I think for me, I wanted to create a life of being able to work and travel. Like, some things got to give and some priorities have to shift. So, I decided at one point when we did decide to go to Hawaii for the marathon and our first stretch of being location independent, I had another job that I liked that I had to quit. And I think that was actually not a little, really scary because, you're kind of giving up security and you're giving up that steady income and health insurance and all those things, which is really scary. But on the flip side, we're gaining this independence. And I think, I'm no expert in every person how they should find the right path, but I think it's a matter of looking online and seeing what you're really good at and seeing kind of what is needed that can be done remotely. So for me, it started off with tutoring math, because I'm a analytical mathematician by nature. It's something I really really enjoy. And so that was my first way to kind of realize, okay, well, I could actually earn money online and doing it this way. And then really doing some soul searching about, okay, well, what am I good at? I worked in nonprofits and for local government for a long time. And I was like, well, if I could consult, like that would be amazing. And so it took a lot of time for me to build up that part of my business. But, that's slowly starting to come to fruition. And then, I guess when it was 2 years ago, I would not have even imagined that that was a possibility. But simply by just taking that risk of like, okay, I'm going to quit my job and I'm going to figure it out. And I'm going to like just trust that like I have the ability to figure out what skills I have that can be used online to make money. And then just doing that is, I think, the biggest eye-opening thing for me, because honestly, 2 years ago, I was just like, I have no idea how I could use what I'm passionate about to earn a living online. And now it's, granted, I'm making a fraction of what I used to make, but it's afforded me the opportunity to be working from wherever. And I think the same thing's true for Raymond.
Yeah, so I was actually in an advertising agency for 10 years. And actually, we were part of a department that was I guess it's a pre-press photo retouching, a high-end pre-press photo retouching shop. And so with that came a lot of, in and of itself, it was tough because my title was, I guess you would call it a permalancer. And what that means is I was working freelance on full-time schedule. And this
in an
is
office.
in an office. And so it wasn't location independent, but yet I wasn't reaping the benefits I wasn't getting any benefits. Actually, they would give us extra money hourly, but it wouldn't necessarily be for everybody, because technically in that type of in that type of environment, you potentially could lose your job at any point, right? Like you're not guaranteed that job security. So maybe in some ways you could look at it and think, on one hand, yeah, you're getting more money, so that's good. And you're I guess you're subjecting yourself to more pressure in order to keep up with the Joneses, right? And not in terms of superficial things, but in terms of like actually making sure that your skills are up to par with everybody that's in your field. And I think for me, after 10 years, it was just a case of the routine becoming so commonplace and it almost stunting growth, not even just becoming like an environment of stagnation. But like actually it becoming somewhat detrimental to what I would like to continue doing with my life on my spare time, which for me was art, right? So it's not very easy to spend, 50, 60 plus hours a week working in front of a computer, doing photo retouching for advertising agency, and then having enough energy to go home and still paint. That was always a struggle. And towards the end of that 10 years, I found myself trying to find ways to salvage it. So at the time we were living in Brooklyn, and I thought, well, maybe if I sprung for some studio space, it would force me, knowing that I would have to pay for this rent, to get into the studio and paint no matter what type of energy I was bringing to the table. And I think while that was like I meant well with that whole endeavor, I don't know if that's truly giving myself the opportunity to it's just not really a fair chance, like your energy is really low. You're not focusing completely on that. I was always thinking about photo retouching, and I was always thinking about like the next day. So I think this whole lifestyle that we're trying to build is essentially trying to find a way to focus on ourselves. And I think this is one of the biggest things that maybe I personally may have missed out on. I remember thinking after high school, there were some people that were telling us, don't go straight to college because you have to live a little bit. You have to try and find yourself and figure out what it is you're passionate about. And then from there, you can decide what field you want to get into. Because if you're just going to jump straight into it, you could be shortchanging yourself. You know, you could be a little dishonest with yourself and what you want to do with your life. And I think this is almost giving ourselves that chance again, you know, like we've already graduated, we have degrees, and we've made that decision of what we think we want to get into. And now is our chance to sort of rewind, refocus. And yeah, I think that's it.
Yeah. So 10 years ago, we were both sitting behind a desk and dreaming about traveling and, you know, doing things around the world. And now we're, you know, slowly getting to a point where we're doing it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
Oh my gosh.
Big moves. Big
You
things.
just
Big
said
things.
all the things. It was all the things that we talk about and more. Like, you guys are living your truth and oh my God, I have so much to say. First of all, totally agree on the college thing. I didn't take time off, but I would tell anybody to take time off and decide if college is even the right move, right? Like, sometimes it's not.
Yeah.
I could go on forever about that, so I won't. But you mentioned something, I think it was even before we started recording, about freedom. And just listening to your story, you guys have created very intentionally a life of true freedom from, you know, being, as you said, a permalancer, which is funny. I've never heard that. But, you know, freelancing sounds very kind of transient and free, but from your story, like it wasn't. It was kind of holding you back from doing the things that you love and honing in on your gifts. And so you intentionally changed that. And same for you, Carmela. So, you know, freedom for you guys might include travel, but that doesn't have to be true for everyone. It's more just a matter of understanding what speaks to your heart. And as Carmela, you said that you just had to trust your ability to make this work because you had the gifts that could sustain a lifestyle like this. And there's a little bit of surrender there. And I think you guys kind of hit the nail on the head with your blog called No Wrong Turns. And we have a friend named Tara Long, and she talks about, you know, trusting that no matter what you do, you can't screw up. You can't screw it up. If you do something that doesn't align, just do whatever you need to do to get back into alignment. And I think you guys really live that very, very fully. And so just super grateful for you guys to come on and share your story, because it's so inspiring. It really is something that we need to hear, especially in this day and age where we can easily get lost in the day-to-day.
Yeah, totally.
I definitely hear that. And I think, you know, with No Wrong Turns, you know, the idea really was born out of something so simple. I mean, one weekend, it was so long ago in like 2007 or something like that. You know, we wanted to just, I think it was a Saturday, and we were like, well, what do we do? And we didn't have any plans. And, you know, with those precious 2 days of a weekend, you're usually like, okay, like, let's plan and make sure we maximize our effort. But for us, we were just like, let's just get in the car. And when we get into an intersection, like, make a right or a left, we'll decide. And then, you know, that whole day, that's what we just kept doing. And it was like so fun. We found, you know, new furniture. We tasted langoustine for the first time. But really, like, where we ended up wasn't far, like, from home. And like, we would not have found that if we had a pre-planned route or if we kind of scheduled the day.
Right.
So it was really just like, okay, again, that's like the philosophy that we kind of have taken to life, like, where it's like, okay, well, this is what we think we should do. Let's make this decision, make this turn, so to speak. And, you know, we'll learn something from it. It may not be the correct thing, or who knows, but ultimately we'll learn something from it, and it'll benefit our lives in some way.
Yeah. And plus that's subjective, right? And just to add to what Carmela was saying, it's like, you aren't really focused on the destination, right? Like, the journey is what's fun about it. And if you can just change that part of your brain that sees it as a mistake or a potential mistake, or like the fear that's preventing you from taking that leap, that realization would maybe even help you change your perspective into seeing it as just a fun ride, you know, like, this is what it's all about, right? Like, you're not going to wait till you retire to travel. You're not going to wait till, everything's perfectly set up, because that's never the case.
Yeah.
You're just sort of going with the flow and riding it as long as you can.
So cool. So it sounds like you guys, I mean, I love that philosophy, and it sounds like there's a lot of spontaneity in your life. Certainly you're living a sort of transient lifestyle. But is there any structure or routines or habits that are non-negotiables for you guys?
That's a good question. I mean, I think for both of us, it is hard to maintain routine being in different places for different amounts of time. But I think a couple of things that we try to always do is, have some type of movement or activity that's really important to us. And so, for example, here we live in Manoa, and we work out of co-work, which is in Kaka'ako. So we make a point we don't have a car, so we walk there and back, or at least we try to every day, or every day we go. So to like incorporate some type of movement into our life. And if we're not here, and if we were recently living in Pacific Heights, we would just, walk up and down. There's like the big hill up in Pacific Heights. We would do that. But, before living here, we were in Thailand, and we made sure we had a place that had access to a gym. Wellness and movement is something that we try to incorporate in our day to day.
And I think for us too, you could probably tell just from talking to us, we loved hanging out with each other all the time. There are some couples that can't stand being with each other, that, the whole day, like they're working together, they're working out together, they're, having all their meals together. And we're that couple that just totally loves that and enjoys it. So even with exercising, we try and find things that we could both share in. So I think running and indoor rock climbing were two of the the biggest saviors for us in terms of finding a way for us to stay together. And I think, that's maybe not for everybody, but
yeah, for us that works. And I think, I also think that adds to our overall well-being is to be able to just sweat a little bit every day, and to get outside. It kind of helps our overall just goal towards wellness, wherever we are in the world. And it's sometimes, when traveling, especially long term, it gets so easy because there's so much delicious food everywhere. And so it's so easy to kind of get swept up in that. But I think, we just try to, maintain that sense of wellness. And then in addition to that, I think we also, in terms of routine, we always just try to work on something, whether it's our own personal projects or our blog. I mean, I think there's always a part of us that's, doing that at some point during the day.
I think it's about, even with freelancing, right? If this is essentially freelancing on travel, and what you have to be really good about really is scheduling. If you can't plan your days, and you get lost in the everyday sort of, I'm gonna not do anything, it's very easy to not do anything. So if you can't properly plan your day and schedule, then that may be one of the first things to focus on. Yeah. Just because without the routines that you build for yourself, I mean, that's essentially what you're doing it for, right? You don't want to fall into a routine that was given to you. You want to create that routine, and you want to fill your time up with as many things that you love as possible. So if that involves yoga, or if that involves running, whatever that is, fill your day up with that and all the other things that are passionate to you. So for us, it would be the blogging and my art and Carmela's nonprofit stuff. So I think I don't know where to go with that. I mean,
that was perfect.
I love that answer so much. Yeah.
Awesome. Wow, guys. Well, this has been so amazing. I think people are going to be really, really inspired by you guys. And I'm just guessing, and I think I'm right, that people are going to want to reach out to you and learn more about you, and perhaps work with you guys in your various fields. So I'd like to know kind of what's next for you, what's on the horizon, and how people can reach out and connect with you.
So what's next for us is that sadly we're leaving Hawaii at the end of the month. But
No.
it's exciting because we are going back to the mainland for a family wedding. So that's really
Oh, that is
exciting.
exciting.
Fun.
Yeah, and so we're spending about a month back home. Home for us is New Jersey. I guess home is a funny word right now, but back where most of our family is, and then we're headed to South America at the end of the year to do some hiking with friends in Chile, and then I think we don't have tickets booked yet, but I think eventually we're going to make our way back to Thailand, and because for us, like that's I think one of the ideal places to live and work remotely, just because it's so affordable and it's so beautiful and the food is so good.
The quality of life is
Yeah.
really high over there. So.
Yeah. And then to reach us, we are on Instagram, No Wrong Turns on Instagram, and we also have our blog, nowrongturns.com. And we actually, it's our time in Hawaii, we've been using to build content. If you go to our website now, I think, funnily enough, our last post is about, I think, how much we love Hawaii, but that's something we posted last year. And so I think we're building content now and new stuff will be up. I think we're trying to relaunch towards the end of November. So there'll be new stuff up about our latest travels, about, the things that we've been up to. So we're really excited about that.
So wonderful. I remember there's that saying, right, that people, they don't regret the things that they have done as much as they regret things that they haven't done. I think this conversation is so inspiring and just a great reminder for all of us to get out of our routine a little bit and just take some chances. So thank you for sharing with us, and we'll include everything in the show notes so people can follow you on Instagram and follow your blog, and we look forward to following your adventures and staying in touch with you.
Awesome.
I'm excited.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us. This was fun.
Yay, thanks you guys.
We hope you enjoyed our interview with Carmela and Raymund.
We have something super exciting for you guys.
Be sure to download your free strategy guide to leverage your energy and create more time so that you can work less and live more. Cut your work week in half at bestlifeever.buzz.